The
We'll
geometry
also,
component.
we'll draw a line between these, a line point to point from A, so actually from where it's coming to where it's going, which is in the area. And then we'll use that, the point that's gotten moved over as our starting point for our thing. So now we have these
Perfect.
schedules that draw and point to the shape, right?
Amazing.
Welcome to Kit Crashing, where we explore landscape architecture, tools like 3D, parametric design, and AI. This season, I'm joined by guest host and landscape architect Ishaan Kumar. Ishaan brings the challenges, and I tackle them live, using computational design and my plugin, LandKit, to create better workflows.
Hey, Chris. How's
Hey,
it going?
it's good. Yeah. It's been, uh, I know we were talking about plants last week, and we're not doing this in the morning, which we usually do. So things are a little different. It's actually Monday, so I'm like have my extra coffee here.
And I'm always jammed on Mondays as well, but
Yeah.
I think we were both excited to close the loop here. So
Yeah.
I mean, what you got on screen already is a step further than where we had on Thursday. What you do?
So I realized that this thing that happens sometimes with the database is that the the names will sometimes have an extra space at the end. And if it's just a space, I think it's okay. But if it's like a space that's been copied from a certain text format or something, sometimes it breaks,
Uh,
right? And so I just went through all the names real quick and checked that, and it was working. And what
that's
was
all it
happening
was.
is if it gets hung up when it's baking, if it gets hung up on one of the names, it doesn't bake the others. And I think probably what I need to do in terms of the software is make it so that it only
Filters out.
skips that plant, or maybe we look for that character that seems to be the problem and we fix it. We do have there's other things like that that sort the data. There's quite a sophisticated set of things happening with plant data. I know it's complicated for the users in some sense because you have all these columns and you have all the plants, but this is the conduit, right? This is the conduit from
Yeah.
going from like plant information to plant design. And we're trying to make it so that people can control these things in a pretty open format in a way, like with a CSV file. Um, yeah, so the other thing that you're seeing is that I just went in real quick and just tweaked all these colors, just as a quick thing.
I was gonna ask you about that because
Yeah,
it definitely gives it more life. You
yeah,
subtly changed it.
exactly. Yeah, it's kind of just, and none of these plant colors are accurate. We're just,
Right.
we're just crashing here. So we're just trying to sort of visualize some things. Um, but I do know that there were some other items we wanted to get to with today's session.
Yeah, I think one of the things I still don't fully comprehend is the cluster radius and self spacing. And I would
Yeah,
like you if you could quickly like play with some numbers and we could look at it in depth or
yeah,
see how it changes, that'd be
sure.
helpful.
Sure. So what is this species? This is the my Latin is not great.
Asclepius.
Asclepius, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and so I can go to that one, Asclepius. Oh, which one is it? It's the Asclepius. If you need to know, you can go to the
You just click the
properties
properties,
and
yeah.
oh, it's tuberosa. Okay. So we'll go over here to Asclepius tuberosa, and right now we have a self spacing of 0 and a cluster radius of 2. So let's just start with the cluster radius. We'll make this 4, so that we get a bigger, we can actually see that there's a cluster happening, right? Like there's some kind of, it's not always that exact cluster, partly because it's up against other clusters, right? And so sometimes that gets
It
overridden a
deforms.
little bit, but it's good because then you get sort of more variety in the shape, and that's very often what people are looking for. If they want really specific shapes, they should be that should be almost like a thing that they're building parametrically or whatever. Um, so redo that. I'm also going to change the self-spacing. It's a little risky, but I'm going to change this to 2 and say, file, download, CSV. I'm going to plug the CSV into the folder here, which you can't see. Actually, maybe I'll just bring it up. Example files. Okay, so we have this is our sheet. We're
Hmm.
gonna pull this into here. It's gonna ask me if I want to. It's a window you can't see. Replace that, yes. But this is, this is for this is kind of a looks like the naming on the file is what it is. So I'm gonna go in here, open up. I'm gonna first lock the solver before I open this file because I don't want it to solve before I've even changed the um, grasshopper. I'm going to pull in my new grasshopper because I saved the other one for the last episode. So anybody who's following along can kind of see this at different stages. And then I'll go in here and we'll change this because we have the new location for this file. And we'll go to episode 4 and we'll pick the CSV file, say open. And now I can unlock this, which lets the solver run. So what we should see is a larger radius for these kind of mid-sized pink plants. And we should see sort of a permeability, right? We should see other plants kind of able to, you know, sort of go into those. So I can see that here. I can see it here.
So
There's
cluster
like you see
radius.
this, it's like it's a larger cluster, but there's other plants that can go in between them. So the spacing between the self spacing between those species opens up room
Okay.
for other things to come in between, right? And this is even more dramatic whenever you have, and which one is this? This is our meadow. So if I look at the meadow, um, and we use this instead. So this was our organic packing. If I plug this in instead, we can see that
What's
um,
this? This is the rules, the pattern rule.
no, this is like instead of following a pattern, this is filling in a more organic way, and then it's
Ah,
packing. It's doing the packing. What will happen with the packing is that let's see if we can select these. Asclepius tuberosa. It's kind of hard to see them, but I'm going to pull them out here. Alt. I'm holding Alt. You can see that I have clusters and they're not tight, right? So they're clusters, but they're spaced out. And so there's different forces at work. We're trying to space those plants out, but we have other plants pushing up against them. And so there's these different forces that kind of create the layout of the plants. If I were to change this to no self-spacing again, 0. I download this, download the CSV file. This process is a little slow, but we have other ways of approaching this. Pull this in here, replace.
we could also just open the CSV file, right?
You could. Uh, Sometimes it's easier for a team to edit a spreadsheet and like look at that and really think through things in a clearly formatted thing and then export that. So if we now select this and I copy this, I pull these
Yeah,
out.
so they're
See
all
how now
tighter.
like
Nice.
it's
Okay.
it's clustering them in tighter clusters. There's fewer clusters because the weight is still the same.
Right.
So we get these tight clusters and then yeah, but they're kind of integrated with these other plants.
Amazing.
When
That's
we do
exactly, yeah.
when we do the pattern fill, we have set just as a reminder, we have a set, pattern of points that we're looking at, and it fills each point with a plant. And so these plants that we have are actually, they can end up being, some of these are like they get filled first, right? And so that it's like a pure cluster, and others get filled in later, and then they have other things kind of competing with them. So there's different ways we can approach this. We could, again, if you want like really specific clusters, there's ways to do that. And that's a whole other ball of wax.
I find it interesting that you've covered both of them because the way I'm more accustomed to thinking about planting design is, well, I'm not, well, it's both really. It's it's on like a triangular spacing grid,
Hmm.
but I never get to the point where I'm doing the actual layout. At MVVA, we just quantified the number of plants based on the zone, and then we got to site, but they had a big budget where they could, CA, there was a big CA fee for us to go on site and put the plants, and we would
Yeah.
lay out drifts and then fill it in. This, the packing approach lets you visualize and study that, and then we could figure out what pattern gets us as close to a triangular spacing and really play with that rule as well so that you're testing it out. And
Hmm.
I think that's clear to me. And now I think we could elaborate on within the mix. And I think that
Yeah.
a rule that we talk about in the onboarding workshop is to place plants based on their environmental conditions, whether it's
Right.
water, sun. So I think let's try to focus on the woodland one, which would be tied to trees. So maybe we could plop in trees where
Yeah.
the survey file, or it could be arbitrary, really.
Cool.
And and then based on the spreadsheet, which had part shade, shade, or partial sun, we would start to see how plants organize themselves within that area based on their environmental conditions.
Awesome. Yeah. So like sunshade or sun exposure.
Exactly.
So we have a tool called Create. We have pseudo niche and pseudo plants that, where it'll generate sort of slightly random plants that have, kind of a range of parameters. And then recently we did this new thing called Create Pseudo Plants, which is fewer inputs, but it creates more realistic plants. And it's so there's kind of different tiers here. There's different kind of hypothetical plant builders. But what we can do is say, how many plants do I want? The default is 10 plants. I can also set up a filter to say I want trees, right? So I'm just going to do a 1, which is only going to generate trees. And then I can activate this. Right now there's plants coming out, but if I activate it, it refreshes it essentially. Maybe it should even be called refresh. But we can take these plants and we can bake them. So we're going to do the bake plants because that's going to bake them as blocks. And we can give it a new layer called two slashes, and it gets us into the panel mode, and then we can start typing. So I'm going to say woodland. Well, I'm just going to say trees. Just say trees for now. Now, these are fake trees. They're just, for now, we're just, say, designing some trees. We can generate trees from a database and bake those and then use those. But I wanted to show something a little different for,
Okay.
so I'm going to plug that in, plug the layer in, do my toggle, and I'm just going to bake it once. That's the plan. So I'll turn this on, turn it off, hit save, go over here, and for some reason, are these the plant? Are these those are curves. I'm gonna, something I noticed, I think my C plane is in the wrong place. I'm in C plane, and I'm gonna type world, W for world and T for top. Yeah, it is. It is in a weird place. So let me delete these. Oops. Something odd is happening here. So I'm going to do a toggle or a button maybe. And I'm also going to change the style to we want a 3D tree. So we're going to do 11, which is the form. And now I'm going to bake that. It looks like it's having a hard time with these. I think part of the problem is that we're not filling in an area. So, and it's something with our new species. So I'm just going to do this and say, actually, let's use our woodland shape. So we'll go here and get the meadow, sorry, the woodland. We'll fill it. Just say fill area. So I'm going to use that woodland area, get these plants, and then I'll bake them. There we go. So now we have some plants in the woodland area, right? I can grab all these pseudo plants, PS for pseudo, select objects. I'm going to move them over, select sublayer object, sorry. And I can move these over here. Let's look at these in 3D. In perspective, zoom selected, ZS. And I have some different plant sizes. So I'm going to take maybe one larger plant, one larger tree.
What dictated the number of trees? It's just arbitrary.
No, it was 10. It was
It was 10, 10.
10 is the
But he's
default.
saying 10 pseudo plants.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got these trees here. And maybe there are trees in the design that are over here, right? And that are kind of
Yeah.
nearby. And those could
Mhm.
have an effect on the tree as well. So what we'll do is we'll include all of them, right? So and those are affecting maybe we know these general mixes, they're not going to, a little bit of sunshade variation is not going to be a big deal. And so we're not actually even paying attention to that with that particular mix. That's the cool thing here is that we don't have to apply all the rules to everything. If we did, nothing would get planted
Right.
because it's like over constrained.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll say, I know the name of the trees, right? The trees or the name of this layer is trees. I want to bring those trees in, so I'm going to do a layer pipeline. I'll bring this in here, and nothing is coming in because I haven't defined the sublayer. So I can just
The
say anything
asterisk.
below, so I can just use the wildcard.
I'm learning something.
Yeah, he's paying attention. So then we have geo, which is a bunch of blocks, right?
Right.
There are tools within Rhino 8 where we can break these blocks into geometries and stuff. But what I've found is that it's just a few extra steps. And so what I've done is I've made it so that we can just put either a 6, 7, into the filter here, and then you get all the meshes, right? And the 6 or 7 is based on whether it's the layers it assigns are according to the blocks layer or the geometry that's within the block. So it's kind of nice. So you can filter it out different ways, right? So it can bring
Okay.
blocks in, it can do these things very quickly, and then have the information associated. So now I have a bunch of geometry. And what am I missing? I'm missing some kind of environment
Right.
that collects that sunshade information. So we'll create what's called an environment. And the environment is this is a new thing. We haven't talked about this at all. So it's basically defined by a boundary or multiple boundaries. a cell size, which is how, how big are the sort of
Find the
the grid
resolution is.
points that are sort of sample points within this, and then also usually a topography. And right now we don't have a topography, but I think you can, if I just do this, if I say polyline, polyline, and I'll create a new layer called environment. Make this green. We'll change that. We'll draw our environments. And I could do this across the whole site, but I'm just for speed, we're just doing this one area. Oops. And
So
then
in this case, the trees outside of that boundary aren't factored in.
they are factored in. They are actually. Um,
Because they're getting pulled from the layer.
we're going to include them as geometry that's being considered within the
I
sun
see.
exposure. So you'll see. Oops. You'll see how that works. So plug this in here. Environment. We have the geo. Oh, I gave it an underscore. So I'll just change that to no underscore. And now I have geometry
One
coming in.
cluster.
I'll plug that into the boundaries. The cell size is about 5 feet. That's fine. And because it's not doing topography. Now there's a few ways to do this. Usually there is topography, and it's an important thing within an environment. But if there's not, an easy thing to do is plug the geo right into
The
topo.
same thing, right?
Yeah. Because what it's looking for is a mesh. And the cool thing about Grasshopper is if something is looking for something, and Grasshopper has automatic tools to convert certain things. So if it's looking for a surface and you give it a flat curve, it's going to turn that
Converted.
into a flat surface. Same thing with the mesh. It'll turn it into a mesh. So that's kind of cool. So now we have an environment, right? And what do we want to do with this environment? Well, we want to make we want to evaluate sun exposure, right? So we have the trees that we're going to use. Let's just do sun exposure. So we're going to add a sun exposure layer. And let me actually show you under land kit. We have under analysis, we have all these different layers we can add. It's pretty crazy, but there's layers that are more generic, like just base everything off of shapes. So if you have stuff from a shape file and you kind of categorize those, you can use those. You can do like proximity to different geometries. It's like a little mini GIS, this environment system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way of
Mm-hmm.
documenting all these different analysis layers so that you can then make decisions based off of that, right? Or you can create suitability diagrams based off of that. But suitability diagrams that are part of a model, part of a action uh, sequence within a workflow, right? So we can plug this in, and usually what we do is we say other, meaning anything other than the topo mesh. We plug this into here, and we're only missing a few other things here. We need vectors, we need a start time and a end time. Start time meaning like which month are we analyzing from to, you know. So for some plants in the winter, it doesn't matter. Like the sun exposure is not going to be a factor. So the average is, you know, thrown off. You know, plant sort of is going to need an average of so many hours of sun during growing time. That's what they mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
needs sunny areas during growing time, and the winter is going to throw that off, right? Like, and then so the one thing we're missing is vectors. And what I've done is I'm going to lock the solver because I've grabbed our plant workflow. And this is a little crazy. This is something I wouldn't do for anything other than kit crashing, but I have this. Usually we have some kind of example all set up, but I'm just going to grab this and pull this over, pull that in, and show everybody what this crazy script looks like. So this is this is the planting workflow, which we've talked about in the past. And it allows you to do some of these rules-based planting things and whatever, and you're not setting up your own script, but you also can't control things, individually as different mixes. You kind of have to run a different script for each mix. There's limitations to it, but it's what is nice is that it's pre-built. So I'm going to take these or this guy here. I'm going to copy this, and then close that, and paste it right into here. So it's Shift Control or Shift Command Paste V. And I'm creating vectors based off of I'm going to create vectors based off of a latitude, longitude, time zone, start and last state. This is all based off of Ladybug. So I'm going to hit save, and I need to have a location. So I'm gonna actually start with a really random thing, like, okay, it's 30 degrees latitude, and this is probably a weird location, and it's 60 degrees or 90 longitude. The time zone is, no, 90 is like really high, right? Time zone is going to be negative. Like in Philly, I know that it's -5, right? Because it's in terms of GMT, it's -5. And then start is very often 3, somewhere in March, maybe till November or something. That might be, this is like a fictional location effectively, but you look at this and now we have sun vectors getting spit out, a set of vectors for a day each month. So we have all these vectors, and then we need to plug these into here, our start and our last, because those need to match. Oh, it's thinking. So one thing to know is that we started messing around with a thing that would automatically add vectors, but that's still in the works. Like I still don't trust that. It's kind of a beta. It's kind of a secret thing. So for anybody watching Kit Crashing, you can mess around with it and see if it breaks. So sun vectors, we're going to plug this up into here, and now it's going to recalculate. So it's adding those sun vectors and using them to create sun analysis. So let me clean up a little bit here. I'm going to hide these trees coming in. I'm going to just hide things that are getting, I don't know, I hide everything because otherwise I'm like, what's turned on and what's not, right? It's a practice that I started a long time ago. Just turn everything off. And then when you turn things on, you can see, oh, that's the thing that's on, right? So we have a way of visualizing a layer once we've set up the layer, because the idea here is that you can put in a bunch of layers. So you don't want to see them all the time. And what we'll do is we'll say draw layer as a mesh. And I'm just using the keys to move up and down here in my menu once I get started. I'll plug this in. And then if I look at a panel here, this will tell me, hey, what are the layers that I can actually view within this environment? There's some layers that automatically get set up already in the environment. Two of which actually come from the sun exposure tool. So I can see the hours of sun. So let's just try hours of sun. Hours of sun. Oops, I must have hit the caps lock of sun. Plug that into layer. And now I look here and I can see that it's calculating the hours of sun. And usually, with most of these things, it's flipping it. So like the more there is, the darker it gets. So it's almost like watercolor. So for us, it looks strange because it looks like it should be shady there under the trees. You can see it's kind of white under the trees. So it's the opposite.
Okay.
But we can flip that. we can change the visualization. So let's just do oops. We can create a merge. Oh, I did the right thing. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. So we have a merge, and then we'll have a swatch. And we're going to go from, instead of from white being the lowest to dark, we're going to go from dark here to white, and then plug that into hues. Now it will flip everything, and we go from, oops, I must have missed that. I don't know what I'm doing here. White to, for some reason, it's flipping it. I think it's flipping it for some reason. Anyway, so we can see that we have these kind of sun shade. You can see that these trees are actually creating kind of an ambient. It's dropping the shade values here, like, or it's dropping the number of hours over here, right? You following me, Ishaan?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And
No,
then
no,
and then
no.
in the areas where there's no trees, it's very bright. There's
Right,
always sun.
right.
So that's kind of that's like an average number of hours over the course of months, right? And that's sort of what we need to understand, like, the general idea of what a plant's going to be getting. Now, we can also do the
What
let me
were the
just,
other options? Hours of sun.
yeah, here. Yeah, it's sun exposure. So sun exposure. And now here, like, let me
Right,
delete this
that
because
that's
it
clear.
automatically recognizes it, and then it's, so now we have sun. It's actually, this categorizes it according to a general understanding of number of hours and what we mean by sun, part shade, and shade,
Right.
right? And it's pretty, so it's something that we can look at here, and um, our component page within the LandKit website, the component reference explains those values, right? Um, so now we have sun exposure added to this environment. What do we need to do now? We
Relate the
need,
plants
what's that?
to the outputs.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So um, we're going to use this environment in some way, which is to, and I like to do this. I like to create a data container. I group that, Control G or Command G, right click, and I say, environment. And then I hide this, copy it. I know it's a few steps here. I make a connection, and then I hide this wire. The reason I do that is so that nobody can tell. No, because I I want to be able to have a variable right there, and I don't want wires running across everywhere. I mean, I think it's a confusing methodology that Grasshopper users have played with, or they've done that for a while now, and I don't think it's helpful. When things get complex, you want it to be simpler. So I've added
Hmm.
an environment, but does it change anything? No. And why? Why is
Because you're
that?
not pulling the information yet.
Right. So we've applied in our database, we've assigned, shade, part shade values. These are acceptable values for these plants, right? So it can either be in shade or part shade. And this one down here can only be part shade. Right? And it looks like we're gonna we might run into a problem here because some of these aren't sunny at all.
Right, right.
Right? So we'll get to that. But that data that gets brought in is just data. It's just plant data. It's not actually applied to the plant as a rule, right? We still don't have any rules in our rules-based planting system. So if I go back here and I look at my woodland plants, I'm going to apply a niche from data, right? So based on a data value, it's going to apply that as a rule. So it's just whatever's in that spreadsheet is going to get applied. So these are ranges that are allowed, or we call it a domain within this system. So the domain is shade or part shade. The actual attribute or layer is the sun exposure.
Sun exposure.
And that has to be the same name as the environment layer. That's a key. So
Okay.
whatever the rule is, or the constraint, right, for the plant within that niche, each plant has a niche, and it can have a number of constraints. Um, and those have kind of like their name and then the domain, right? So there's a few pieces to that. So we can plug these in, and then I'm going to do sun exposure. We plug that in here, and we get a bunch of plants that have ostensibly had the sun exposure applied. We have niches as well that there's things you can do with the niches. Like you can take the niche and break the niche up and do things with it and then pull it. And so it's parametric. It allows you to do grasshopper kind of things with it. But if I say niche, what do I want the niche? Get plant niche info. So I can plug this in here and see that if I get a panel again, I can plug in the constraints. Oh, there's sun exposure, and each of these has a different domain. And so that's working, right? We have all of that seems to be working. And the cushion is good if you have numeric value. So if you, especially with color, if you have like an exact color that you're trying to constrain to, like flower color, if you want a cushion around that value, like if instead of just being red, it could be reddish orange
I
or
see.
reddish,
Yeah.
pink, it gives you a cushion. So I'm going to delete that. And now just instead of those plants that didn't have the niche applied, we're going to do a new niche. So I plug that in, and now you can see that we only have plants in shady and part shade areas, which becomes a problem because we have a lot of area that's still sunny. So there's a few ways to solve this. One is to add plants in that have
Right.
the right constraints. Another is to make this more of a woodland. So we'll move this tree here and we'll add more trees, right? So we begin to fill in that woodland. And I'm just gonna save. When I start doing a lot of stuff at once, I start to get a little, things get a little scary. So then we'll add this one here. And we begin to fill our niche, right? And that shade and part shade is acceptable for most of these plants. And if I had plants in the mix that were sunny, right, they would
And
fill
then it would
in
fill out
those
the whole thing.
zones. Yeah. Um, I may also want to just grab, where was there, I had a smaller one here, so I might want to take this smaller tree.
And just put it,
Yeah, put him kind of more in the foreground here to block
yeah.
that sun. Um,
But this gets at the conversation we kicked off with last week in terms of planting design and what we were seeing in the industry and I think you guys are big proponents or champions of the right plant in the right place and opening up the discussion for designers to talk about planting design without necessarily knowing what plant looks good or what plant is suitable or what plant looks good next to the other plant. It's more about iterating and achieving proper planting design. And it's not
yeah,
just like, I want to use this plant in this area. Maybe it's not the right plant and you're
yeah,
forcing it and it's going to die and you're spending money on someone's planting design that's not suited for the conditions. Like I think this reactionary approach of design is just like, oh, I actually have some shady areas, and I thought it was a woodland mix, and I was gonna meet that, but I don't have enough trees, or we need to have a plant that meets that condition. So it opens up,
Sometimes the
um,
concept and the reality are also like
right.
we need this kind of thing to test that, right? To test the sort of survivability and at least to some degree. And it's like, oh yeah, like this is a woodland, but I'm not making it shady enough. But even though I'm picking all
Yeah,
these woodland plants,
right.
and I don't want them to die. So,
And you're not doing the part that blows me away is you're not doing it manually. Like if we go back to the spreadsheet and we're gonna see that they're like the trees clustering at the trunks where it's most shady are the ones that want to be there. And you're not doing that manually. Like that's where it becomes iterative and fast. And as the design changes, maybe I think the shape of this woodland is like a C right now, but if we deleted a couple of points,
oh yeah,
um it would just fill. Like if we deleted this notch,
right, right.
it
So
would
if
just
we,
automatically.
yeah, there's a few curve points here. Um, these got brought in from CAD, so they had maybe a few extra points. So I'll just delete these. Delete. Yeah, now it fills in.
Right.
Um, just a quick demonstration. It's not a perfect shape, but you can always redraft and then just swap a shape out,
Or add.
or if you're using the collage like we showed in the other episode where there's actually a reason that there's that notch there, and if that thing actually moves or scales, then the whole shape updates. The other crazy thing is there can be, you know, the adaptability is multifold, right? There's multiple ways that this thing changes. So if I then sort of say, oh, well, what if we had like this other little, because we want to create this nook with these benches, we're going to do this other just little piece of woodland planting here. So I went to the woodland layer. I drew another little sliver of zone that is hard to see here, but then it fills in, right?
Right.
Fills that in right away. And it's
What's
kind of
what's the 590 number that appeared there?
590 is the square footage of the area, which we set up
Because we
last.
added that, right? We
Yeah.
added that
So
last
that's
time.
another neat thing is like the persistence of these parametric things that we're setting up. And that's the value in looking at it this way, where you're setting things up to work and show what you want, right? And to focus on the things that are important to your design. Um, yeah.
Would
What
it be
else are we?
would it be difficult to within every zone like delineate what plants, how many of each plant is in there? I mean, it's just data. You just have to pull that out as a text block.
Yeah. So there's a fun tool called the schedule, plant schedule. And we can plug this into here. We want to give it a starting point, and then so if we go over here, it starts to spit out some information. We've got blocks and we have locations for text. We'll just start here. So we have our text list, which is all the species names and other information. We have the text locations. We have our symbols, which we already see, and colors. So the way that we usually use this is we say bake text, and we plug our text list into here and our text locations into here. And then we usually what I'll do is give it a nice annotation layer, or I don't know, usually it's L anno, and then we'll say schedule. It could be anything, but I'm going to plug that into layer, but also into bake name, which, as we've said before, bake name allows you, when it's present, to override the bake that was there before. And then I'll do a toggle, which is always true, so that when we change things, it will just update. And then I'll do a bake. Well, let's just preview the symbols for now. I can show you at some point how to do the baking of the symbols, but we just want to show the colors and the geometry. So now when we view that, oh, I'm going to also do a swatch that's white to show up on my dark background. So I'll do a color, it's white, and oh, it's sometimes after you bake these things. So if I just select, I'm going to delete this layer. Yes, delete. And then I can Okay, there we go. So now I have the species, I have the symbol, I have the quantity, right? I also, again, you can see that there's these points. I hide those. So I hide those. So now we can take this and we can say, all right, well, um, I want to actually show all of my species at once. I'm just holding, well, actually, let's just plug this in here like that. So now it's showing me all the species, and it looks like there's something breaking when it comes to some of these.
Mm.
Not sure what's going on there. Poly. It might be, I wonder if it's this, I wonder if it's the hashtag on the color. Could be. Yeah, so we can see all the species that are being planted. You can also do a stylistic change to this as well. So the style, just like with our other one, could be different. So I could give it a style, and you can see here that it has the style set up there. We could also apply that style, that same style here.
To the visualization of
Yeah. Yeah. So we go over
the
here and we see
matches,
that all of these are now,
blocks.
unique. Um,
But what I meant is like this is something that I I got requested from our technical director once, and I thought it was really smart. Is that you get a shipment of plants on site from the nursery,
mhm.
and within each plant bed, how do you like tell the contractor how many of these go here and how many of these go here?
Yeah.
And so I think land kit is definitely placing plants based on area. Could we, based on area, similar to how we have the label of square footage,
Yeah.
create a label that says this number of this
Sorry.
in that one, this number of this in that one? Based on, I don't, yeah.
Mm. New challenge.
Huh.
It seems obvious, and maybe somebody should have asked me sooner. But honestly, it's something I don't think I've set up before. But let's do it right now. It'll be fun.
Okay.
All right, so what we're gonna do is say per zone, like per
Right.
area, we're gonna do this. So the first thing we need to do is graft, right?
Right.
And by that, I mean that we're gonna take these different areas and we're gonna create a different table for every single area. So I'll right click and say graft. So now it's not happy.
Why don't we just do it on the woodland mix for now
Well,
instead
yeah,
of
we
the
could,
whole?
but we already have two woodland mixes.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The two woodland areas, instead of doing it on right now we're pulling the merge of all the woodland meadow and rain garden.
Um, Hang with me. We can do this.
Okay.
We can
I
do this.
trust
Yeah.
you.
So we're gonna take our areas that are coming out, and we're also gonna say, give me the area stats. We've done that before. We'll plug the area stats in, and we've got these surfaces. What
Right.
we did
The
before to get
four.
a point was just to populate, just to get some point. associated with that, so we can do that. But I also I want to make 1 point
Right.
per
Similar to what we
job.
did with the areas.
Yeah. And then because these are going to graft in the same order, now I have a point for each of these. So I
Hmm.
say save, and then I go here and look. Oh, there's one thing that we're going to need to do here, which I've realized. Um, so these are coming in grafted, but for some reason this one it likes everything to be flattened. So we're going to say flat, flat, and then so we just also have to text. Oh, we have to see how many 50 values there, 50 values there. So I think we're in good shape. So now we see that there's a list of plants that are available here. There's a list here, and they're hard to read. So what we might do is say, okay, once we have this set up, we are going to move everything over. So say move.
Yeah, the X, Y.
Yeah, so we'll move it in the, let's say in X, 100 feet.
Yeah.
So we'll move it.
The
We'll
geometry of
also,
component.
we'll draw a line between these. A line point to point from A, so actually from where it's coming to where it's going, which is in the area. And then we'll use that, the point that's gotten moved over as our starting point for our thing. So now we have these
Perfect.
schedules that draw and point to the shape, right?
Amazing.
And there's a problem here because some of these are not, the right symbol. There is a problem. There's some data sorting problem that's freaking it out. Symbols. Oh,
But I don't think I would need you don't need the symbol because you would have the
yeah,
schedule do that.
yeah.
Here you
If
just
it's a
need the
problem, it could
quantity.
be it, but it's something that usually there's a
You
way
could
to
sort it.
solve
Yeah.
this. You can see here that it's breaking every species and it's grafting every species. That's fascinating. I think the problem here is that it's no, that makes sense. Huh. Okay. Sorry. Sometimes my brain goes and looks for things. Yeah, we're missing what's the fascinating thing is it seems like we're missing our blue plants for some reason. And I'm not sure what happened there.
Did you drag it? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, because we had the rain garden. I guess is that the rain garden?
Yeah.
So we can say get area, oops, area plants, so we can just see if those plants even exist. Plants. Yeah, for some reason those are not filling into here. I see. We plug the environment into all of these. So I'm just gonna
Delete it.
see if
Oh,
that
we don't need it
removing.
here.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't need it in this particular case. I'm gonna disconnect. Oops, disconnect that. See if
There
that
we go.
works. Ah, there we go. For some reason it was.
Why did it work in the meadow and it did?
It's a good question. So in the rain garden, I'm not totally sure. Maybe I just didn't plug it into the. No, I did. That's weird. I'm not sure why. Couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Not off the top of my head.
All right, but we would disconnect that
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, it's not really needed. Save and then yeah, those are filled in. So we have our schedules. Yeah, the symbols, there's something odd happening. I typically the way I have the schedule working is I'm using it once. Or I use like if I have multiple things, sorry, what am I trying to say? If I have multiple schedules, I'm using multiple components, one for each schedule. But really the way it should work is that it should be able to spit out all these schedules at once. And that's a great, again, this is why we do these fun, crazy things, because then we discover that those things would work great if we fix this
Right.
case that
Glitch.
we
Yeah.
haven't thought of before. And that's a way of expanding the features set in some ways, but usually there's a way to solve something like this. I'm kind of curious why it's drawing just the one type of shape. Like why is it not drawing? Well, you know what's funny is it is it drawing the correct symbol? No, it's not even drawing the correct symbol, I don't think. Yeah. But the neat thing is you can change the symbol style, so I can go make it a 3. And then we have this kind of branching, we call it branching symbol. It's a little different. And then there's um, this other one, which is a glyph. Um, and then this one's called, what is this one? Modern? Oh no, this is glyph. The other one's called lockup. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and they get automatically generated, but the neat thing is they come out as blocks. That's a cool thing. So this block, is here. It's just representing this plant, and you can bring it into CAD, right? You
Yeah.
can recognize it like, oh, it's that one, and if you need to, you can swap it out for some other block that you like to use. There are ways that we could bake these using like blocks that we already have. Like there's tools to do block baking, and all you would do is associate the location with the preferred block, and then it would bake. It wouldn't be too hard to set up, but I think given our time, we may want to we may want to avoid that. So, what else did we have on our list here, Sean? Have we covered some of these things?
I think this is great. This is a great first planting workshop. And it definitely eases planting kit crashing. It definitely eases a lot of my doubts. And maybe before we close up, I'd love to, I think I said this in the intro session to this, like some insights on planting on projects that Landau has done, how complex has it gotten? Because I'm sure, planting design, as I said, it is very niche and very, very few people do it and do it well, and they want to have that hyper control. And so I'm curious if you could share a little bit of your experiences and like how crazy has it really gotten? Like
Yeah. Well,
I'm surprised
imagine,
something like this no one has asked you. It's super practical, thinking about the
right.
people building our landscapes. This is really important for someone to like
It
know
is. It
how many
is.
plants go into each area.
Yeah, and it's really just a few. We went from a single schedule to multiple very quickly, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not, it figures it out. I know the symbols are a weird thing. I'm sort of fixated on those. What's
But
wrong?
again, I don't think
Um,
that that's important. If we have an overall
Behind it.
schedule that gives you the symbol,
Yeah,
I would need the quantity.
right. Yeah. So then, we've seen some projects where, you like imagine you've got a big site and you've got like different like areas, right? And they're just defined by zones and these mixes like we've done, and you're filling all of those, and you've got You could have, like in your spreadsheet, as you've done, you can have, a bunch of species under one mix, and really you're just changing the mix name. And then you have a bunch of other species under another mix, and then it's automatically just filling these things in, you know, thousands and thousands of plants all at once. And then if somebody needs to do another zone that has similar typologies, it scales so fast. Like you literally just have to draw those other shapes and run the script on that, right? And it just fills it in. As long as you need the topo, you maybe need some sun exposure nearby, whatever it is, buildings or something. Maybe there's other factors like wetness of soil that you're delineating based on shapes. So maybe you're redrawing some of those shapes or, drawing those. But compared to the usual time it takes to like say, okay, we're going to work on section 2 now, you know,
Yeah.
and there's thousands more plants that are being placed. That's like a month of work,
I
you know.
mean,
It's
when I first started joining the planting workshops, and everyone is free to sign up for those. I think one of the things that Ben covers that always baffles me is just like he talks about drawing outlines, as you said, within the mix. You can add other parameters and say, I want right here in this corner to have white flowers that are fragrant because I have trash bins. And I don't know if it was you or him when he said that, and I was just like, I have never thought to that level of detail, and I don't have to do it manually. Like that could
yeah,
be a parameter. Or
yeah,
I have benches and I want to have a zone that has not pollinator plants. And so, you could start to outline within the mix additional rules and
yeah,
see it manifested and not have to think about these things, on site.
yeah. If we look at these parameters, these weight, spread, height, cluster radius, sun exposure, these are all pretty standard in our vocabulary in terms of the land kit data. These become attributes when they are imported. All of these become attributes. These are attributes, but they can also be a rule. Like you can say, only put white in this area, like you said. Sun exposure is the same thing. It's can be used as a rule, but we're adding sort of an arbitrary name here that's not part of the lexicon called
Right.
mix.
Right.
It's going to become a common thing that I think we use a lot, but the mix allows us to then either separate those plants out, which is what we're doing in the script, or to have maybe there's like one big zone and the mix just becomes another rule, right?
Right.
And it like is literally we literally draw shapes to determine the mix, and then things are like just changing based off of that. But yeah, you could have another thing that's like pollinator safety or something, and then you
Yeah.
it's like true or false, and you draw a zone, and then it's if it's you know, these are all true for pollinator safety and these are not, and then they only get planted in those zones according to that rule as well. That's the neat thing is it can be
It's a
flower
layer
color
on top.
and
Right.
pollinator safety or whatever, sun exposure and all these things together. So um, aesthetic and biological
Ecological.
constraints,
Yeah.
ecological
Yeah.
constraints. There's other rules too that allow you to yeah, there's cool things like you can have a plant that then has it serves as a parent for other plants, right? And then you can have those plants act as parents for other plants. So it can become like a real ecological sort of unfolding, where companions upon companions sort of thing. Um,
And
and
that would be well served for like the plant designers that know that certain things go well together and want to have that control. You're controlling it
yeah,
through the spreadsheet. So
aesthetically or ecologically, yeah,
maybe
or
that's
both.
something we can cover in another one, because I've seen that, I've heard that critique is just like how I know what looks good together, or I
Yeah.
know what grows well over time together. Um, so I think that'd be fun to unpack in a future episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, another thing that we've done, just last thing, is the ability to use Grasshopper, to as a translation layer. So imagine where, you have somebody who thinks of percentages and what, their mixes in a certain way, and we think of it in another way. You can sort of use Grasshopper as a way of like changing that. And we've done that. We've built tools for other firms to place their plants according to their rules and their spreadsheets and the way that they think about them.
Hmm.
Um, and and so that the nice thing about having this exist in computational design space is that flexibility to change
Yeah, it's
those things
customizable. Yeah.
and still have all the benefits of like suddenly we're looking at schedules and we don't, you can also do bloom calendars, things like that. So really fun stuff. I'm looking forward to some more. Hopefully, I got your wheels turning. Looking forward to more planting questions here.
Yeah, planting I think is so exciting, and it's my biggest black hole as a designer. I studied architecture, and I've always wanted to be a part of the conversation, and that's what excites me about the planting kit is that it lets me be a part of that conversation and develop it to thinking about the contractor, thinking about ecology. It's super powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I'm looking
awesome.
forward to cycling back to paving. I'm gonna have to really study what we throw at in the next session, but this has been fun. I love that we dragged it out into 2 episodes, and I'll see you
Yeah,
soon, Chris.
absolutely. Thanks, Ishaan. Bye.
Ciao.